Welcome to the world of Liaozai. Last time the question was, which legendary Chinese ruler got married with the help of a nine-tailed fox? And the answer is Yu the Great, who is supposed to have ruled about 4,000 years ago and established China's first dynasty, the Xia dynasty. He is reputed to have tamed the great floods that were ravaging China at the time. And the story goes that when he came to a place called Tushan, a white nine-tailed fox appeared and introduced him to his wife-to-be. Another version says his wife herself was actually a nine-tailed fox. Another nine-tailed fox is blamed by legend for bringing down the Shang dynasty by taking the form of a beautiful concubine of the last emperor of that dynasty, leading him into all sorts of cruelty and depravity. The ruler of China during most of Kusum Ling's adult years was another great emperor named the Kangxi emperor. His reign of 61 years was the longest reign of any emperor in Chinese history. Natural disasters can happen at any time, though, and Kusum Ling records a number of these during the Kangxi period. Today, let's look at two accounts of natural disasters in Liaozai. The first one is called Heejun, which means earthquake. In the evening, on the 17th day of the 6th month, in the 7th year of Kangxi, there was a great earthquake. I happened to be visiting my cousin, Li Duzhe, in Jisha, and was drinking with him by candlelight. Suddenly, we heard a sound like thunder coming from the southeast and heading northwest. Everyone was astonished and unsure of the cause. Presently, the tables began to sway and the wine cups were overturned. The roof beams, rafters, and pillars produced a grinding, twisting sound. We looked at each other and turned pale. Eventually, we realized it was an earthquake, and each of us swiftly rushed outside. We saw all manner of buildings thrown down and lifted back up, while the sound of walls and houses collapsing mingled with the howls of women and children in a seething cauldron of noise. People, too dizzy to stand, sat on the ground and were tossed around by the earth movements. The river water was thrown up more than 10 feet high, and the clucking of chickens and barking of dogs filled the town. After about an hour, things calmed down a little. Looking at the street, naked men and women had gathered together, all talking over each other, forgetting they had no clothes on. Later, I heard that the well in some place had tilted and couldn't be used, and the pavilion of some family had changed direction from south to north. In Qisha, a hill split open, and in Jishui, a sinkhole appeared several acres wide. The transformation was quite extraordinary. At the end of this account, Kusum Ling adds an amusing anecdote. A local woman got up during the night to urinate, and upon returning, found a wolf had seized her son. The woman frantically struggled with the wolf. As soon as the wolf relaxed its jaws, the woman snatched the boy out of its mouth and held him in her arms. But the wolf crouched down and wouldn't leave. The woman shouted out, and when a group of neighbors hurried over, the wolf finally left. As her shock turned to relief, the woman described with wild gestures and florid words how the wolf had the boy in its mouth and how she snatched him out. After a long time, she suddenly realized she didn't have a stitch on and ran off. This is the same state of affairs as the men and women forgetting themselves during the earthquake. It's so funny the way people lose the plot when they panic. This is typical of Kusum Ling, that he manages to find humor even in dangerous and disastrous situations. He also records another natural disaster later in Kangxi's reign, in an account titled Shui Zai, which means flood. In the 21st year of Kangxi, Shandong suffered a drought. From spring through to summer, no grass grew on the seared earth. On the 13th day of the 6th month, there was light rain, and the planting of millet began. After heavy rain on the 18th, the moisture was enough to start planting beans. One day, an old man in Stonegate village saw two goats fighting on a hill at dusk, and told the villagers, "A great flood's coming." Then he took his family and moved away. The villagers all mocked him. Before long, torrential rain poured down, never stopping the whole night. On flat land, the water stood several feet deep, and the dwellings were all submerged. One farmer abandoned his two children so that he and his wife could help his elderly mother escape to high ground. Looking down at his village, it had become a watery expanse, and he held no hope of seeing his children again. When the water receded, they returned home. The whole village had been reduced to ruins. They entered their own gate to find one lone building remained, and saw the two children still sitting on the bed, laughing and playing and unharmed. All exclaimed that it was due to the man and his wife's filial piety. This happened on the 22nd of the 6th month. In the 24th year of Kangxi, there was an earthquake in Pingyang. 7 or 8/10 of the people died. The city was utterly devastated. Only one house survived, and that was the home of a certain filial man. Among that boundless catastrophe, only a filial man's inheritance was unharmed. Who says heaven knows no right or wrong? We can see from this account how important filial piety, the traditional Confucian virtue of respecting and obeying your parents, was considered to be. The man is praised for putting the life of his aged mother before that of his children, and the survival of his home is attributed to his filial behavior. Unfortunately, China is prone to natural disasters, such as earthquakes and floods. For this week's question, can you tell me what major natural disaster occurred in China in 1976? I'll get your answers next time. Until then, if you want the protection of heaven, make sure to take good care of your parents.